Hi, I'm Steve with the Shoebill Studio, and this is the all-in guide for Bloodborne the board game. What we've got here on the table before us is my entire Full Moon Pledge from back in 2019, and everything over here on this side of the table is what CMON considers to be retail, and everything over here is what they consider to be Kickstarter exclusive, with the single exception of Forbidden Woods. Now, Forbidden Woods was considered limited, so we're gonna keep this on the Kickstarter exclusive side of things just because it's something that is supposed to be harder to get, but also like there might only be a certain set number of them available in the first place. For the scholars in the audience, you may have noticed that there are two very small Kickstarter exclusive boxes that are missing from this side of the table. The first of which would be the Hunter's Dream Extras. The second is the Reiterpallasch Hunter. Both boxes are here. I've just incorporated them into their respective expansions, but we'll do breakouts for each in the Kickstarter exclusive portion of the video. I won't be spending too much time with the core set today, as we've already covered that in our Bloodborne core set review. You can watch that right here. But instead, this is more of a tour that will walk you through each box and expansion. So if you're a completionist trying to catch them all, or if you're just interested in some of the new gameplay possibilities, hunters that are exclusive to certain boxes, or the mechanics that only show up in this expansion or that expansion, this guide will give you a good sense of where you can find what and what each box brings to the table, and whether or not the new additions would be something you or your game group would actually be interested in the first place. So let's start with the core set. You actually don't need anything else except this box right here to begin playing. As I've said in other videos, the core set boxes that exist in these large Kickstarter campaigns are oftentimes stripped back versions of the game, as many mechanics and different characters, bosses, monsters, and hunters have been put into expansion boxes that more align with their theme, but oftentimes are used to sort of push purchasers into that all-in status. But this core set is pretty solid and gives you plenty to work with. You get 4 very good hunters, some of the best that are out there: Threaded Cane, Hunter Axe, Ludwig's Holy Blade, and the Saw Cleaver Hunter. You also get 4 iconic bosses with Cleric Beast, Father Gascoigne, Bloodstarved Beast, and Vicar Amelia. And of course, there's all these other mobs that you'll be very familiar with if you've spent any time at all in Yhar'Gul, from church servants to scourge beasts, and everything in between. You also get 20 tiles with familiar locations. Additionally, the core set comes with 4 campaigns, and each campaign has 3 acts. So that's a ton of different content for you to play through, many hours to enjoy in Yhar'Gul. The first retail available expansion that we're going to talk about is Chalice Dungeon. And this one brings a ton of value to the table. It's got 2 new game modes. It's got 4 hunters. It's got 5 different bosses that you can use in all sorts of gameplay. You get 12 Chalice Dungeon specific map tiles, as well as 7 new monster types, any of which can be inserted into a campaign that has a space for a random monster, just increasing the replayability of all of your other expansions. The first game mode is the namesake of this expansion, and it's a fantastic PvE co-op experience where basically it's a one-off hunt that's much more combat focused, but you go in and you fight monsters. You try to find the levers in the dungeon, and if you played the video game, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then after you activate 2 levers, you get access to the final boss arena where you'll face off against one of the bosses that were randomly picked to fight you in this run. Besides just defeating the end boss, there are things in this game mode that are unique to it, and one of those things is Chalice Rites. And Chalice Rites are sort of side quests that once you complete them, they grant you 3 Blood Echoes for free, so like 3 upgrades to your action deck when you go back to the Hunter's Dream, and it's for everybody on your team. And then also Chalice Traps. Every time you build out the map and you flip over a tile out of the Fog of War, a Chalice Trap is revealed as well. And so there's lots of spontaneous things that can occur based on what's on the map and the types of monsters, but also sometimes nothing occurs and you get lucky. The bosses included in this expansion are the Watchdog of the Old Lords, the Thumerian Descendant, the Yhar'Gul Thumerian Queen, the Undead Giant, and the Beast-Possessed Soul. Many of these are true to the video games Chalice Dungeons, which is quite fun as well. The second game mode that's included in the Chalice Dungeon expansion is Hunter vs. Hunter mode, and it's essentially a PvPvE mode where you spawn into the Chalice Dungeon and you are hunting one another, so it's a competitive version of the game. You still have monsters that spawn and they, have to be dealt with and operate in the same way, but there's no hunt tracker, so there's no blood moon, there's no timer in this mode, and so you can really get into some intense battles, but there's also some other interesting rules that are applied to the Hunter vs. Hunter mode that make things extra interesting. For instance, there is a 6-level boost at the beginning of Hunter vs. Hunter mode where everybody draws 10 cards randomly from the Marketplace action deck, and you get to keep 6 of them. And so automatically you start from a much stronger position than you would otherwise, and you only have 3 lives. So after that, no more. Additionally, you only have a single action per turn, and you no longer draw up to your hand limit at the top of your turn. You actually have to take an action called Recover to put cards back in your hand. So things can get very tense, and the chase often is quite entertaining. And the last thing, but not the least, are the hunters. You've got the rifle spear hunter who, as you can imagine, wielding a spear, how far they are away from monsters is important, but also movement and momentum. So they've got one side that does +1 damage for every movement action you took during a turn. And then the other side is if an enemy enters the space that you're in, you can essentially play an action card out of your hand face down onto your switch weapon and just automatically deal 2 damage to them. Next, we have the Chikage Hunter, and they're sort of like a stick and move, but also like they're self-supported in many ways. It kind of reminds me actually of a warlock in World of Warcraft, like Burning Crusade times. They've got a life tap. Essentially, on attack, they can suffer a damage to increase their speed or the damage output that they're doing by 1. And then on the other side of their weapon, they have a heal 1 damage, deal 1 damage on a successful dodge. Next is the Stake Driver Hunter, and this is kind of a one-trick pony, but also an incredible one-trick pony that's basically just one big setup. So on one side of their card, there are 3 spaces, just like normal, and essentially after you attack with the middle space, you can transform or switch the weapon for free. And on the other side of the weapon, there's only 1 space to attack from, and it's called Detonate. And it hits for 4, it has a knockback and does some extra damage as well based on how close enemies are to you. A hugely popular hunter for very good reason. And the final hunter included in this set is the Beastclaw Hunter. And the Beastclaw has essentially one side of their weapon that is on kill, you heal to, and then you move to. And then the other side is on attack. If you're at 3 or less health, you get +1 speed, +1 damage. So another very powerful hunter that if you can stay alive at half health, you can really start to lay the killing blows all over the place. Chalice Dungeon, as far as I'm concerned, is a ton of value between the hunters, the monsters, the bosses, and the game modes. The game modes, especially the Chalice Dungeon game mode alone, is worth buying this expansion. I've had a ton of fun with it, and this is the very first thing that I recommend to anybody who is wondering what they need to add to their collection. The next retail expansion is Hunter's Dream. And Hunter's Dream is great. It adds the mini-boss mechanic where you can essentially select a couple different mini-bosses to add to a little deck that will spawn mini-bosses as you reveal tiles as you go searching through the map. This adds variable difficulty because you can sort of add as many mini-bosses as you want, so you could get crazy and have them popping out on most of the tiles. That would be very difficult, but you can see here up in the front row, the mini-bosses are represented by a bunch of different hunters, and then we've got Winter Lanterns and Executioners that can also show up as mini-bosses. Additionally, because it's the Hunter's Dream, of course, the special tile is the Workshop, which is the place in the video game where you can go level up and you can use the workbench to improve your weapons and all sorts of stuff. And on the other side is the Garden. The other cool things that come along with this are a couple bosses. You've got the Moon Presence and you've got Gehrman, as well as another whole entire campaign system that can be added to any campaign that you've already completed. It's essentially a 4th chapter. There is one confusing thing regarding this expansion, and that is that it includes Carol runes and like hunter items that are essentially copies, exact copies of the same items that are in the core set. The difference is they have the icon for the Hunter's Dream expansion at the bottom. but they do exactly the same thing as the ones from the core set. And that is everything for Hunter's Dream. A very cool expansion that adds, again, more replayability, and the mini boss system is really something that you can add to any version of the game. You can add it to the core set, any campaign. It's a lot of fun. The next and final retail expansion is the Forsaken Cainhurst Castle. And this is mostly a story expansion with a couple very unique bits and pieces, but most prominently it has a branching campaign where there is a choose your own adventure, and then based on how you played this campaign, you'll either end up playing Queen's Legacy or you'll fight the Martyr's Legacy. Probably my favorite part of this expansion is that you have a special consumable card that has to be drawn in a different campaign to get an invitation to come to this expansion in the first place. Sort of like if you want to go to Hogwarts, you gotta wait for the owl to show up. So once you draw this consumable, you effectively have your invitation to then start doing quests at Cainhurst, starting with the bonus chapter, Forsaken Legacy. The bosses that are included in this pack are the Martyr Logarius, and then Annalisa, Queen of the Vile Bloods. You get 5 different monster types that have all sorts of different moves and move sets. And of course, you get unique tiles that are usable only for Cainhurst. There are unique Carol runes and hunter items that are part of this expansion. 2 runes and 4 items. And then there is 1 redundant item, which is the Executioner's Gloves. While not my absolute favorite expansion, this still has a ton to offer to the replayability of Bloodborne at large. And also the campaigns themselves are quite enjoyable, at least 1 or 2 times through. And now we're on to what CMON called a limited print run, which is the Forbidden Woods. And the Forbidden Woods is similar to the Forsaken Cainhurst Castle expansion. It is primarily focused on more campaigns that you can do in this portion of the world of Bloodborne. And it also shares a similar entry mechanism in the sense that you add a bonus mission that requires you to kill Yosefka into any campaign, and then upon completing this mission, you then can begin the first of the missions that occur in the Forbidden Woods. And then once you've opened the area, you can proceed on to the other campaign missions that are available there as well. This one has a whole bunch of monsters. You're looking at, again, 5 new types of mobs and 2 new bosses, a ton of gorgeous new tiles that are all Forbidden Woods themed. The Carol runes and the hunter items in this set are also redundant to the core set. And these new campaigns, they contain a couple new mechanics, dark rites and ritual materials. I wouldn't say that they are groundbreaking or certainly game-changing in a sense that is super exciting. The bosses that are available in this expansion are the Witch of Hemwick and the Shadows of Yhar'Gul. This is one of my favorite sort of dripping in theme expansions that's available. Also, Big Piggy, you know? Who doesn't love Big Piggy? And we're finally in the Kickstarter exclusive portion of the video, and this first expansion is Mergo's Loft. This is essentially just a single campaign with 2 different types of monsters and 1 boss, as well as a large double-sided tile that has some memorable locations from this portion of the video game. The Mergo's Loft campaign is a 3-chapter campaign, pretty standard, and it can be played right out of the box utilizing core set tiles and of course the tile that it comes with. I have very specific memories of dying in Mergo's Loft constantly in the video game. The actual tile for Mergo's Loft here makes it so that enemies and hunters that are staggered on a pit space automatically die. Sounds about right. The next Kickstarter exclusive expansion is Yahar'Gul Unseen Village. This is another somewhat small box expansion with 2 types of monsters, 1 boss, and a campaign. But this one's a little bit different. The campaign has some special mechanics that are fun, and also this large tile has a lot to do with that. So the first chapter plays out quite normally, but the second and third chapters take place on this tile almost entirely. And essentially, you as a hunter has to go through Yahar'Gul and unlock a bunch of these rooms to find keys so that you can open up the Advent Plaza. And once you're in the Advent Plaza, you will then have a pretty cool boss fight that has bell ringers in it, which are the mobs that they don't really attack you, they just sort of like keep summoning stuff. That bell ringer sequence leads to the boss fight with the One Reborn. It's one of the more replayable campaigns because the way the keys get distributed on the map is different every time. And also, it's exciting to have to move around during a boss fight on this final map to manage both the bell ringers as well as, you're trying to mitigate all of the stuff that the boss is doing at the same time. So this is a great expansion if you're looking for a campaign that has some special mechanics that lead into a boss fight that is definitely different than most other boss fights. So our next Kickstarter exclusive is the Upper Cathedral Ward. And this one may have the most impressive mini in the entire board game, and that's Ebrietas. This like baby Cthulhu looking thing, not only was it incredible in the video game, the fight is iconic and intense, but the version we have on the table before us is, 1 part sea slug, 2 parts old god, and it's incredible. Overall, this set comes with 2 new monster types and this fantastic boss. The campaign that they've included in this expansion is pretty standard, but they have included one small mechanic that is a resource that they call Madman's Knowledge. And Madman's Knowledge is kind of fun. It interacts with different things on the board and also different things in the deck. And there are ways that you can spend it depending on what the campaign deck has told you, and also different requirements that you have to meet in order to progress past certain goals. But I wouldn't say it's a really in-depth mechanic or particularly interesting. It just is another sort of thing that you have to manage along with obviously all of the actions and your health. And what I can say is that if you've enjoyed the campaign play of this game at all, you'll definitely enjoy Celestial Truths. It's very good and quite difficult. All right, another Kickstarter exclusive, but it's the last Kickstarter exclusive that has a campaign with it, and that is Byrgenwerth. Byrgenwerth brings a few new things to the table, most notably 3 new monsters and the boss Rom the Vacuous Spider. It also brings a new mechanic called Madness to the campaign, and the campaign introduces a type of frenzy that also includes this Madness deck. And so essentially every time you trigger particular things, you have to draw a Madness card from the Madness deck, and most of the time it's bad. There are a couple that are okay. There's one maybe that's good. Sometimes nothing happens, but most of the time it's not good. If you like the idea of a little bit more variable difficulty, this one might be for you. There's also this large double-sided tile with iconic Byrgenwerth locations that you'll definitely remember from the game. It's got some replayability, this one. So the next Kickstarter exclusive we have is the Blood Moon box. And this box is fantastic. Unfortunately, it is often quite expensive in the secondary markets on like eBay and stuff, but it's mostly because this box has 6 new hunters in it. There's a giant spider boss, the large nightmare apostle, and there are 5 new monster types. And then on top of that, we have a bunch of vanity pieces here. So like upgraded 3D treasure chests and lanterns, and then also some doll figurines here. Obviously, the hunters are the star of the show as far as this box is concerned. And the breadth and depth of gameplay, sort of variability and flexibility that they provide is immense. So I would say if there's a box that you really want to take a look at, if you really are sort of bored of playing the same characters, or if you want to have every single possibility, every single build at your fingertips, this is honestly the one. And really quickly, I just want to give you sort of the flavor of each hunter. So right off the bat, we have Logarius Wheel, and this is a pretty vicious weapon. It hits pretty hard, but on one side, it's on attack, heal 1, and then on the other side, it's on attack, may suffer up to 2 damage, and then deal that much additional damage. Next up, we have Kirkhammer. And Kirkhammer is a big heavy weapon. It's got a heavy side and then sort of a comboed upside similar to the Greatsword. And on the combo side, it says, each time you clear a slot, deal 1 damage to 1 enemy in your area. And then on the other side, you see these 2 massive hits. And at the top, it says attacking with Crushing Slam, which is this one all the way on the right-hand side. Cannot be staggered, but you can't dodge from that square either. Next, we've got Ludwig's Uncanny Holy Blade. And on this side, it says each time you clear a slot, deal 1 damage to 1 enemy in your space. And on the second side, it says after attacking with Combo Strike, you can transform for free. The next hunter is the Blade of Mercy, and on one side, you see that it has 3 attacks that all are at 3 speed, so super fast. And at the top, it says combo finisher deals +1 damage for each filled attack slot. So combo finishers over here on the right, if you can get all these filled in, you do sort of like an extra bunch of damage. On the other side, it says stagger can affect enemy attacks of the same speed. So it's a little bit slower, but being able to stagger at speed of 2, anything that's speed of 2 or slower, is extremely good. All right, the next hero is the Tinnitrus hero, and this is that electrified sort of mace, if you remember that from the game. And on this side, it says, after transforming, next attack this round gains 1 speed and 1 damage. So both sides of this card are the same. So as long as you're transforming regularly, this weapon can be a real powerhouse, both in speed and in damage. And the final hunter is the Burial Blade, and on one side it says, at attack speed, deal 1 damage to all other enemies within 1 space. My interpretation of this, because that's a little bit unclear, is essentially that, the Burial Blade is large and it has a big sweep, and so whenever it goes off, it actually just does extra damage to everybody that's nearby. So it is truly an AoE weapon as long as you get the attack off. And on the other side, it says, before attacking, you may move any enemies within 2 spaces into your space. With 6 additional hunters, the Blood Moon box punches way above its weight class. It has a ton of flexibility and variability to add to any version of the game, the core set, any of the expansions, the Chalice Dungeons, and it brings build diversity and just interest to gameplay that no other expansion box does. Sadly, this is one of the ones that is hardest to get your hands on, but it's well worth it if you like this game system. And I'm talking like you really like this game system. So, thumbs up from me. Our next Kickstarter exclusive is the single character pack, the Reiterpallasch Hunter. And if we take a look at the switch weapon, on one side it says, when dodging at the same speed as the enemy attack, deal 2 damage to that enemy. And then on the other side it says, place 1 card face down on Quicksilver Shot and deal 2 damage to 1 enemy in your space. So as far as whether or not this expansion is worth it, I would say that if you're somebody that really feels like you want all of the options for hunters and builds at your fingertips, this is clearly something that you probably would be interested in. And here we are, we're at the final Kickstarter exclusive box, the Hunter's Dream Extras. This expansion is also another really good expansion if you love the mini boss mechanic that the Hunter's Dream introduces, because it gives you 7 new mini bosses, filling out the rest of its roster with the remaining hunters that hadn't been made into mini bosses yet. You've got Reiterpallasch, you've got the Uncanny Holy Blade, you've got the Burial Blade, you've got Tinnitrus, Logarius's Wheel, the Blade of Mercy, and also the Kirkhammer. Additionally, there are 3 Carol Runes and 3 items that are redundant to the same ones of the same name in the core set. If you really enjoy the mini boss system, obviously this is a no-brainer. But for me, it really adds an element of surprise and also replayability to expansions and campaigns that I've already gone through. I can increase difficulty and also get some fun new firearm drops that wouldn't otherwise have shown up in those campaigns. Well, that's it. That's everything that's part of the all-in full moon pledge of Bloodborne the board game. So whether you have been enjoying Chalice Dungeons for years at this point, or whether you are just starting to explore Yhar'Gul, I hope that this video has helped you hunt down what will be worth playing for you. If you want to see more deep dives like this, be sure to like and subscribe. And let us know what you want to see next in the comments below. Thanks for watching the Shoebill Studio. More is coming.